Here we are back with what is week 5 technically and week 1 for Tayshia. We are starting over. And Chris Harrison opens by saying how, I guess, inconvenient it is that the guys had to go through all these COVID tests just for Claire to run off with Dale. But fortunately, a new Bachelorette was summoned. And I'm thinking they need to bring in new men, don't they? Because didn't they pick these guys based off their compatibility with Claire? Or did they pick Tayshia because she compares to Claire? Not totally sure, but now it's time for her entrance. And in walks Tayshia. First impression, easy is feeling Tayshia, okay? But then shortly after we realize that all the guys are feeling Tayshia. Now keep in mind, all she did so far was walk in the room, and already there's like magic in the eyes of these men. Then Tayshia's doing kind of like her opening speech and then mentions, if you would have told me a week ago that I'd be here in this position, I wouldn't have believed you. No, she said a week ago. Well, maybe a few months ago I would have thought, yeah, I can see myself in this position, but nobody ever called me. And I thought she came out with a lot of confidence. She had a good speech, but it also felt like something was missing. Like she didn't address the whole Claire thing. Basically, she kind of just came in and said, hey, let's have a good summer. Didn't really address the fact that these guys have been here for 4 weeks and she's just now meandering in. But maybe that's the way to do it, honestly. You know, Claire is gone. Let's start fresh. Now, Blake and Tayshia get to chat real quick. And Blake says he feels like it's more real in one interaction with Tayshia than it was in 4 with Claire. Is this guy serious? Aren't you the one that crashed Claire's date and sulks when she made you leave? Oh my God, that reminds me that she wouldn't kiss him when he showed up there. She just refused it. And then the next day she pulls him aside and thanks him for coming. She was so confusing. But anyway, I'm not fully buying Blake. Either he didn't like Claire like he said he did, or he's trying to mask it so that he can move forward and win this thing. Don't try to pull a new love at first sight thing on me, because it's not, no. Then we hear from Jason, who is very transparent about his feelings for Claire. But it appears he's also very attracted to Tayshia, in his words. With that, I'm convinced that he's going to stick around. And so Tayshia's having all of her conversations with the guys, good conversations, and then Chris pulls her aside because everything is about to change. And just as we predicted last week, it's because new guys are showing up. I feel like this is great for Tayshia because maybe they specifically picked these guys because they feel like they'd be good for Tayshia. And on the other hand, this really sucks for all the guys that have already been there because they just cannot catch a break. But hey, if you trust in this process like you say you do, she'll end up with the right guy, will she not? But did these guys need to quarantine? Were they on the resort quarantining? But I'm excited because now I get to judge some first impressions again. And first we have Spencer. Spencer comes out and I see his face and I'm pretty sure I've seen him before. I think he was on the list of contestants that they put out on Facebook. I think it was like some of the men you'll see on The Bachelorette this season, instead of being like, here are Claire's men, because he's not Claire's man. It seems the guys are intimidated by him, and I am not digging Spencer's vibe. And I know the show is strategizing to make him a villain here, so there could be some tactic going on. But even without that, I didn't like him. I feel like he's trying to be funny / cool, but it's really actually like conceited. Or maybe he was just strategically placed onto this show because they ran out of drama. They had nothing to work with, so they had to probably bring in someone that they knew could be a villain. I don't know. And Spencer is also like a classic villain. So like I said, Bennett was, the Hallmark villain. Spencer is like the Paul Walker of She's All That. He's good looking, probably good at sports, and definitely wants to steal your girl. Also, the name Spencer, it just sounds like a vampire, kind of. He's like automatically a villain. Then we get another guy, Noah, who walks out. He had the stethoscope and a mustache. And the guys are looking at him through the window and they're like, oh, I'm not worried about him. Poor guy. And don't judge a book by its cover, because Tayshia's history shows us that she has an interesting taste in men. So Noah could very well be her type. But we had a whole limo pull up and only 4 new men showed up. So enough to make things a little bit interesting, but nothing crazy. And here came my number 1 favorite moment of the entire night. Tayshia finishes speech number 2 because she just got 4 men who haven't heard from her yet. And whereas Claire couldn't get any guys to pull her away to talk on that one date, all the guys swarm Tayshia. to try to steal her. Pretty much all of them. Maybe it's just that they've had their practice now and they were put right in their place. But either way, it was hilarious. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that many guys just swarm the Bachelorette like the blob. Also, does anyone else feel like we're actually finally getting to know these guys so much more than when they were Claire's men? I feel like I know people's names. Like there's a guy on the show named Ed. I'm sure this is all because all we ever heard about was Dale. So then on the table, Chris Harrison places the second first impression rose of the season. Tayshia doesn't pull it right away. She has some more conversations, but then she goes and gets it. And she gives it to Spencer. And then Spencer gets the first kiss. Now, my initial thoughts on their relationship, and you know, stemming from my unofficial psychology degree, he does not look excited enough. He kind of concerns me. And I know that I already said I don't like him, but he concerns me not just in terms of his feelings for Tayshia, but just in general. Like, you know how when you're having a conversation with somebody, it's natural to like look away every once in a while? He doesn't. He just stares. His eyes are locked wherever he's talking, and I find that odd. Also kind of vampire-y. Then Tayshia comes out and she says, thanks everybody for coming, and this is usually about the time that we do the rose ceremony. Yeah, well, I'm canceling it. And Chris is like, okay, Tayshia, you're the boss. Yeah. Quit acting like Tayshia came up with that herself. She didn't. Okay, good job, Tayshia. Yeah. So now in the middle of the show, we get a quick preview of what's to come this season with Tayshia. And they show her crying and saying she doesn't want to do it anymore. And I guarantee you that's just her breaking up with somebody. I think they want it to be more suspenseful, but it's not. I also am kind of hoping for a John Paul Jones appearance. But that's like really hopeful, like really pushing it. I was just a fan of them. So actually, I kind of hope that he doesn't show up, because then I might be a little sad. And we're back from a commercial break. And it's Chris Harrison in some unknown location. And he tells us something needs to be addressed before we can continue this journey with Tayshia. Well, more Claire. Now, maybe this will be the end, but probably not. Also, why do they do that weird, like, 90s move where they make the host switch cameras? You know, like switch angles? That's right. Claire fell in love with Dale. What Bachelor Nation wants to know is... Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't understand it. And I guess the purpose of this is for Chris to cover all of the questions that the audience needs answered, because they can't have a live after the final rose. And we're also, I guess, going to find out if the two of them spoke before the show. Like, I guess that's the big thing. Claire already said no. I don't think it's going to be anything different than that. Chris asks how it's going with Dale. It's apparently amazing. Claire says, yes, it was absolutely love at first sight. She thinks they knew each other on some other planet, and I think I agree. And she talks again about him showing up for her. That's like the main thing, I think. He just shows up for her, which honestly, that's a very good trait to have in a man. I do believe that Dale is a good guy. So cue Dale. Dale comes out, and he agrees with Claire, says it was hands down love at first sight. And as he's talking, he's kind of unemotional, which maybe that's just the way that Dale is, but we wouldn't know it because we only got to see a few weeks of him. We didn't get to know him at all, except watch him kiss Claire and comfort her from Yosef. And Dale also felt like he never really had anyone show up for him in his life. So together, they show up for each other. Now, here's the thing. I felt like there was a lot of love during this. I was even like wrapped up in their emotions as they were talking. There was a clear connection, I thought. But I gotta always be devil's advocate. There's pressure now because it needs to work out. This is the first instance ever on this show of love at first sight. They canceled the season so that they could be together. So if it does not work out, and truly the pressure is on Dale. If he ever, like even for a second, felt like he had to move forward with this relationship to please somebody, to please the show, to whatever, there's no backing out. Otherwise, it's like Claire is declaring all of these wonderful things about Dale, and then Dale breaks up with her, then he's definitely not. He's going to be the bad guy. That's just my 2 cents there. Well, now Chris needs, apparently on behalf of the Bachelor Nation, to find out if they spoke before the show. Let's just get this part over with. People don't believe it's possible to have love at first sight. No, they didn't talk before the show, but please keep in mind, Claire Facebook stalked him. I can't call it actual love at first sight because it wasn't your first sight. You were like, I wonder when Dale's gonna come out. Now, Claire's hurt that people doubt them, and I also doubt them. I'm sorry, but I can only judge based on my own experience and what I saw with my own 2 eyes during those 4 weeks. She has to be a little bit understanding of that fact. Like, we only judge based off what we see on TV. She also says, and what people don't understand is nothing like this has happened before. I don't know if that was to like validate the fact that like, obviously it's love at first sight if I'm canceling my season to be with Dale. But again, I remind you, Chris came out and ended this for Claire. I don't think Claire would have ended the season early unless she was slightly advised to do so. Now listen, I hope it does work out. I love when relationships last on this show, which what happened to Ashley and JP? I have no clue, but I never thought they'd break up. And they did, and I liked them. But moving on. Okay, back to Tayshia. Tayshia is worried in the back of her mind that these guys, or some of these guys, might still be hung up on Claire, Jason. But if Claire could have seen their faces when she walked in, she'd feel a lot better. Now, Chris comes out, lets everybody know every single one of you is getting a date. Enter first group date card. And it says, here's to a second shot at love. Anybody ever watch A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila on MTV? It was basically like a Bachelor dupe, but way more raunchy. I just thought it was ironic, or maybe they did it on purpose. Now, everyone is going out to the pool for this date, and as they go outside, Tayshia emerges from the pool in a very staged fashion. In fact, it's the exact fashion of her promo. Now, apparently we're getting another competition where the losing team has to go home and can't spend extra time with Tayshia. I get that there need to be stakes. I need something new. It's just all the time. So all the guys go to the lockers to get dressed in their uniforms for this activity. And the uniform is a Speedo. Apparently the Bachelor is looking to expose some men as much as they can this season. And did you see Jordan? I think this was the first time we saw him with his shirt off, but he had two birds on his pecs that looked just like the birds on Caitlin Bristow's arms. I thought they were the same thing. Now, they're playing what Chris calls splash ball. That might be a real game, and if it is, that makes me a terrible PE teacher. But I've never heard of it before. It's essentially like water polo basketball. And I must say, I'm happy to see some good form, because a bad shot, instant no for me. And Spencer, evil Spencer, gets cut on his mouth because according to Riley, his face hit his elbow. His face hit my elbow. But I'm going to go ahead and say Riley's elbow hit Spencer's face. It kind of looked like this. But whatever. So the game goes on, and eventually the blue team wins, and they win a barbecue and open bar, as if there's not always an open bar ready and available for them. Unfortunately, although the green team loses, they have to miss the barbecue, but they can return later. So it's not completely over for them. And we pan over back to the resort, and Jason's talking to Joe. And we know what the narrative here is anytime Jason's on screen. He says he doesn't think he can give Tayshia the love that she deserves, because she needs somebody who's going to be able to give their all, essentially, and Jason can't do that because he still has feelings for Claire. And Jason, I'm afraid, is about to be the one to give Tayshia doubts throughout this season. And I just want to tell Jason to suck it up, because I'm trying to root for you. I want you to stay on this show. But for right now, he is. He's sticking it out. And then the next date card comes out, and this is a one-on-one, and it's for Brendan. But again, another guy whose name I didn't know. I'm not even sure I remember seeing Brendan. I literally don't know if some of these guys are part of the new four or if they've been here this whole entire time. So back to the date, and I just have to say, Tayshia is hitting it off with these guys. Easy, Zach, who she goes in for the kiss for. And you know what's funny / messed up a little bit? Claire had her eyes set on one guy. Two things messed up about this. She apparently had love at first sight with Dale, but is like hard macking on other guys, you know? And then the other messed up thing, this show brainwashes you, because I'm finding that we're in a better position now that Tayshia is showing equal interest for multiple men. You think it would be better to be like, I really like this guy, I'm just going to focus on him. But no, I want her to have relationships with all of them. Something's wrong with this show. Okay, now we go over to the guys who are talking to Spencer, evil Spencer. And Kenny just straight up tells him he comes off like a beep. And as if we haven't heard it before, let's hear it again. Spencer is here for Tayshia. And that's it. Here's the thing about that, though. Anytime someone says that, that means that these people are always jerks. You don't have to be. You don't have to be a jerk to be here for Tayshia. But now, consequently, Spencer is sensing some animosity and jealousy from the guys. Could be accurate, but the show doesn't want us to think so. They don't want us to like him. However, he does seem to have a little bit of a different persona in front of Tayshia than he does in front of the guys. Don't like that. Now it's time for the rose of the date. Tayshia picks it up and she gives it to Easy because she appreciates his honesty and his openness. And I am on board with an Easy rose. Then we go back to the guys on the resort talking to Jason. We're talking about Jason and his doubts. And then Jason comes out and confirms the doubts. and he makes his exit speech. So he's leaving us and he cries. Dude, that emotional purging date that he had with Claire was much more effective than I think she or he ever intended. He said he was in love with her. I was not expecting that from him. And you have to understand, I have people who know him telling me things about his personality, and then I have TV Jason. And I gotta say, it's throwing me off. But I have to really admire his decision, because look, he's got an opportunity for like an awesome experience on this really cool resort, maybe go on a few dates, but he is putting his selfishness aside to ensure that the Bachelorette and the guys here have the best experience possible. Should have seen this coming though, because they had Tayshia talking about her fear of guys being hung up on Claire like 9 times. So Jason goes to find Tayshia and he tells her he had strong feelings for Claire. He doesn't think he can do it anymore. He's going to go home. And Tayshia almost sounds like she's really trying to get him to stay. I had hope for a second. She's like, don't let something, like, don't pass this up because it could be something great. But he ultimately leaves. And I'm okay with it. Jason, Claire was not the one for you. We will find you a good woman. But now I need to find somebody new to root for. We get to our last date of the show, which is the one-on-one with Brendan. And I don't remember what the date card said. And just as I was thinking this, some guy asked Brendan what the date card said, and he couldn't really remember either. But then out comes Tayshia on a horse. And apparently she's excited for this date with Brendan because I guess anyone who can rock a turtleneck can rock anything. So I guess Brendan can rock a horse. Now they're just, you know, casually riding through the resort, and Chris Harrison shows up and offers them margaritas. And then he sprints to his scooter and scooters over to a new location where he shows up and offers them ice cream. And he just continues to do this. This was funny for a couple of reasons. One, because Brendan apparently kept trying to kiss Tayshia and Chris was interrupting, which, how do you kiss on horses? I don't know. Anyway, but second thing, which this actually is not funny at all, but I was wondering how much they had to pay to reserve this entire resort. The whole thing is empty except for them. Like, they don't even have anybody cooking for them. I guess that would make it more expensive, but just curious. But now Tayshia and Brendan are in the pool, and this is Brendan's opportunity. He's finally ready to go in for the kiss, and he just pretty much announces it to her. Hey, I've been wanting to do this, and I just haven't been blah, blah, blah. And essentially, I think Tayshia is like, shut up, I'll just kiss you. And according to the private interview of Tayshia, she is like kind of smitten with him, which is great. I just would not have expected it. But again, Tayshia does not have your typical taste in men. And I personally just didn't feel the chemistry there. I think because Brendan is super shy. Now we go to the dinner portion of the date, and they had a good conversation here. Also, so far, Tayshia's outfits are very nice. Not everybody could pull off that top. Yeah. See what's important to me on this show? Now, as they're talking, Brendan is really working to like sell himself to her here. He's like, hey, I know there are better looking, smarter guys, but I'm just a really well-rounded package. He seems really nice. Don't you love that we're finally getting to know these guys, like finally? And we find out that Brendan married his high school sweetheart in his early 20s. It didn't work out, but they separated kind of mutually. But then he found out that his then wife didn't want to have kids, and he really wanted to have kids. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I totally forgot that Tayshia was also married. But unlike the amicable separation of Brendan and his ex, Tayshia's husband cheated on her. So they can't relate there, but they can bond on the fact that they both were married and divorced, and now they're looking for their true soulmate. And good news, because Tayshia wants 5 kids. But throughout this whole conversation, I still felt like Brendan was really nervous. I think Tayshia opened him up a little bit. She has that infectious, easygoing personality. But I think there's more opening up, relaxation to do with Brendan. But I did like him, and he seems like a good guy. He is a little bit awkward, though. They were outside by the water, and the moon, what did he say? Look how beautiful the moon is glistening on the water. And I think he was trying to be romantic. Didn't really come off that way. They kiss and fireworks go off, and good start for Tayshia and Brendan. And then previews for next week. Yeah, another group date of sorts. Noah with a mustache is, I guess, causing trouble. And then someone gets yelled at for calling Tayshia a smoke show. What woman wants to be called a smoke show? And I just want to interject here because if somebody called me that, I think I would like it. I feel like that's a good compliment. Isn't it like, yeah, wow, you look real good. Right? Anyway, but that's it. That covers week 5 of the season, week 1 of Tayshia. I feel very refreshed and ready to start over. I wonder if they're going to go if they're going to end on time. I don't know. Things are all messed up this year. And I really like Tayshia. I like that we're getting to know these guys that have been here for 5 weeks. And it feels like the Bachelorette again. So let's do this. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll see you next week.